Welcome back to the eSports Report presented by Xbox One, official console of MLG. Puckett and Benson talking new maps here in our map preview segment. We've added some new game types into the rotation here for Season 3, and Drift, we saw it back for Search and Destroy.
We did.
Now it's become a more popular hardpoint map.
Yeah, we actually have some awesome video to show you guys. It was when ISO played Optic Gaming these, so they played this map, and of course Optic we talked about earlier on. We expected them to kind of struggle in this, and this is a little bit of a breakdown of exactly kind of what to expect, where a lot of your key players are going to hold different positionings on the map. And you know, it being a new map, Chris, you're going to see certain players, you know, take a little longer than others, maybe, to try and learn new maps. That's something which is always interesting, but it's good in the way because it keeps the game fresh for the viewer and also the players as well.
And you can see Havoc with his SMG early on, trying to control. Optic Gaming, lots of battles here on this map, Ben, and you're going to kind of walk us through a little bit later. What should we be looking out for on drifts in particular?
I mean, it's a very, very battle-heavy map. That's something which has been established very early on, and you look at hardpoint number 2 and hardpoint number 5 as kind of those money hills where you really want to lock it down for a significant period of time. I'll touch on the spawns in a little bit, but really general consensus as of right now that out of all the new DLC which has been added into Season 3, I feel like hardpoint drift is probably the best.
You really like it?
I mean, yeah, I think you compare it to some of the others. Maybe Skyrise, Search and Destroy. I'm a big fan of that map. Old school Call of Duty remake. Like it a lot. But you've already kind of played Drift, right? You've played it in Search and Destroy. You know the map, you know the callouts. So it's nothing too crazy. All that's happened is Drift, Search and Destroy has been removed. Now you're playing on hardpoint.
And you see the final 5 minutes here is a pretty close game. As we get down to the final segments, Ben is going to get us set up to go through the map. If you guys missed it, don't worry. You can watch this full game in its entirety on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/MLGCOD.
I want to break down certain different positions. You know, you're currently spawned into the map, Chris, and you can kind of see that hard point on the minimap. But if we head over to my screen on the telestrator, I can actually break it down kind of map per map, if you will. And this is the exact hill that I was going to talk about, Chris. This is the second hard point, okay? And I have some key power positions outlined on my minimap, which I kind of want to talk about. Of course, second hill right here. Now, everything blue is kind of related to that second hill. Now, the red players, this is the key positionings of where you want to be set up, okay? So you want to have, obviously, one player on the hill, one player pretty much where you actually just were, Chris, another player just a little higher than that, and of course one down on the bottom side with an assault rifle watching his allies. And that's exactly what you were talking about earlier on. You know, the assault rifle, so key. Now, being in those power positions is going to force, you know, players to spawn out. You look at, for example, right here, this is exactly where you're going to be aiming players to spawn in, and then they have to kind of flood through. It makes it very, very difficult to control, Chris. It's a tough hard point, and you will see a lot of teams pick up a lot of time on the second hill. Moving on to the fifth hard point, this is where it gets crazy. You look at those blue arrows. This is the exact position you want to be setting up on. And again, it can be pretty tough. Being in those positions, though, will force your opposition to spawn pretty far out. And again, at that point, those players pushing through those line of sights, you're running into assault rifle players outside of the hill. Of course, you have that SMG who can essentially just lie down on the hill at that point. But it's very important to note, throughout the rotations of the game, first rotation, no avalanche. Second rotation, avalanche. That drastically changes the whole side of the map and those power positions as well. You kind of have more head glitches, essentially, on the second rotation, simply because of that avalanche. And it really does make those line of sights a little bit more difficult. But ultimately, so far, I'm a fan of this map, Chris.
And after watching kind of the ISO and OG match last night, what kind of stood out to you as the real key? If you're a new player trying to get better with your squad, what is the one thing you want to focus on most? I
think, again, you know, that second hill, that fifth hill is going to be key. You look at the assault rifles, your assault rifle players, they have to be playing extremely well. It's a very AR-heavy map, and for me, you know, if you're a new team trying to play this, you know, you're trying to grind from that semi-pro level up to a professional level, you need to be focusing on picking up kills with the assault rifle and locking down those key power positions and being ready for that change in the map. That dynamic element does change it quite heavily.
All right, so there you have it, guys. Focus on that AR play, and you are going to win Drift. We're going right back into our storylines for tonight, though, here as we're running out of time in our preview hour. Tonight, we have some awesome matchups. Real quick to catch you up on the season standings, of course, at the very top, you got Optic Gaming sitting at 2-0. You got Denial at 2-0. Nation and Elevate both undefeated so far. And then you're going to see Rise Nation and ISO. They've been able to split 1-1. Few teams with losses early on. You saw Envy off to a pretty nice start. Yeah. Lost in Game 5 to Optic Gaming. Orbit hasn't been able to get anything going on. Same thing can be said about TK and Epsilon. But tonight we're going to see Faze for the first time. And I'm excited about this matchup because right at 6 o'clock, we're going to see Faze taking on Elevate, a team that started slow, but once they got it going, they really caught fire behind Apathy.
And that's the thing, though, for me. You can't start slow against a team like Faze. Faze isn't a team who's going to go 2-0 up and choke it. That's just not going to happen. I mean, 7 p.m., of course, Orbit's going to take on Epsilon NA. That's a key match for Epsilon. 8 p.m., you get to see Envy for the second time, going up against Optic Nation. This a real test now for ON. They've started the season strong. Can they continue that momentum? And 9 p.m., the game to close out the evening is going to be TK versus Isolation.
As we take a look at our matches one by one, let's start with that Faze versus Elevate game. Before we get to our predictions, let's talk kind of big picture here. Faze, major moves in the offseason. They bring in Kaliber, they bring in Attach, silver medalist, making way for these two players. What do you think? What do Kaliber and Attach bring to the table? How much do they improve this Faze line?
I mean, you have your Call of Duty World Championship MVP, you know, 2 Call of Duty World Championships winners, who phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal. You can't stress it enough. Clay's an assault rifle player, one of the best in the game. Him and Formal on another level compared to everybody else. And it really is that simple. This guy is just so good. Then you add, of course, Attach to this, and he's basically the other half. If you imagine it as like a married couple, what Clay brings to the table attaches that other half. He's that aggressive SMG player who's going to, you know, run onto those hard points and clean up all those kills, which, you know, Clay isn't able to clean up. But Clay, at the same time, is opening up those lanes to allow Attach into those hills.
Attach is going to be much needed tonight to cancel out the SMGs from the Elevate squad. When you're looking at Elevate real quick, is it a Apathy again? Is he the key player? Who do you think it is tonight?
Has to be Apathy. He needs to be consistent. You can't have those games like we saw earlier on. You know, you look at the stats. KD, when he's losing, is like a 0.58. That's absurdly low. But then when he's winning, it's like a 1.3. It's like, okay, great, but we just need a little bit more consistency from you right now, Apathy. You need to be somewhere in the middle. You can't be dropping such low numbers when you're losing. That's just not good enough.
I'm excited to watch Saints again tonight, especially in this matchup. Faze Elevate, in my opinion, the best match of the evening, but arguably the most important one is going down between two teams without a win. It's Orbit and Epsilon. This is going to be happening in our second match of the evening. The big storyline here, how important is tonight's match for Epsilon specifically?
It's massive. They can't afford a loss. They really can't. They've started off very slow. They need to get that momentum going, you know. We talked to Swanee at Season 3 relegation. Mr. X had an interview with him, and Swanee basically came out and said communication has been the issue with the team. If we can fix that, we should do well in the season. Now, he's referring to communication in game there.
Right.
But if you start off pretty slow, a couple of losses, you know, choking yesterday, 2-0 up, what's the communication outside of the game going to be like as teammates? You have to get on with your teammates on at least some level, whether it's just respect in the game or if it's kind of like actual good friendship. If it isn't clicking, it's just not going to work. And that's something which they really need to address. So hopefully tonight they're able to come out and try and close out a series, because I feel if they go up 2-0 again and they start having memories of what happened last night, it's not going to end well, Chris.
When you hang out with this Epsilon squad and you took all 4 of them out to dinner, you were the 5th person there, it'd be a pretty quiet dinner. It's not
it really would.
It's not the most vocal team, just their natural tendency is to be quiet all around and be listeners. So someone's got to man up and become the leader. We've talked about it. We think it's going to be Swanee.
Yeah.
Nagafen, after watching some tape here, I mic'd him up during our relegation tournament. He provides some great in-game leadership. I hope to hear more out of him throughout the season. Looking at our 8 o'clock matchup, Envy versus Optic Nation. Envy dropping that Game 5 to Optic Gaming, now playing against an Optic Nation squad that was able to win their first matchup. Would a win versus Envy validate the new ON lineup?
Kind of want to say, yeah. You look at what Envy did against Optic Gaming, and you saw them play very well. So you already know this Envy squad is very, very talented, stacked with ability. If Optic Nation is able to take that series against them, you look at that ON squad in a completely different light. You know, they've struggled, as we mentioned earlier on in the show, throughout all of Call of Duty Advanced Warfare. It hasn't been a good year for that brand. But, you know, a win here, if they can build on the confidence of a win yesterday, would be massive for them. And you have to look at that team then and say, okay, maybe this is a team which can compete. Maybe this is a team that we should maybe consider in that second echelon of teams. Definitely, right now, not a team who's in that first second. It's not an Optic Gaming. It's not a Faze.
It's still a bubble team, in my opinion.
It is. It's a team who, I think, with a couple of good performances and a bit of confidence, can break out of that bubble and get themselves comfortably, you know, that 4th, 5th, that kind of area, hopefully away from the 8th place, because that's not where you want to be if you're a team.
And on the other end, how nervous are you for Envy if Envy loses this to Optic Nation?
I mean, that would put them at 0-2. You know, they've played up to gaming. They struggled. Well, they didn't really struggle. It was just an unfortunate loss, I guess, when you look at it like that. I feel this is an important game, though. It is against Optic Nation, and I feel if there's a map that they kind of want to take if you're Envy, it's going to be those respawns. Just really try and nail it down. You know, Moch is going to be the problem causer, especially Miracles as well. Aggressive SMG, you saw that all of yesterday. They're going to be the 2 target players I think Envy are going to try and focus down on.
And then finally, we have Team Kaliber versus Isolation eSports. ISO looking very strong so far in their hard points. Tonight, what does TK need to fix against ISO? They're 0-2 on the season up to this point.
It's a question which is on a lot of people's minds. You know, you bring in a couple of teammates who have teamed before. You think, don't worry about it, Chris. We're going to have natural chemistry. It's going to be there. It'll click. Right now, it just isn't working. Whether it's teamwork, whether it's communication. You have, ironically, the one player who didn't play with these 3 players previously, Nameless, being the most consistent. You know, he's doing everything he can in hard points. He's dropping serious numbers, and you have to look at the other players really and say, come on, like, what is going on? You know, Sharp, Neslo, Theory need to just become a little bit more consistent, help out the slaying department, and more importantly, though, I feel just focus on the objective a little bit. I feel like everyone is kind of thinking, all right, let's just try and kill things, which is definitely the right mentality, but you still need to be thinking, oh, you know, it's hard point, I can kill everything I want, but if no one's sat on the hill, guess what? We're not going to win. The search and destroy play has been pretty good. That old school chemistry from TK and S&D has definitely come through. Just those respawns where it's just questionable. Like, I really don't know the answer to that, and I feel a lot of people don't. Whether TK themselves know the answer to that, that's the scary thing for me. I don't think they do.
It's going to be interesting. This is a huge night for TK.
It is.
You know, I gotta see what's going to happen here in this matchup. We asked you guys in the chat what you thought about all of this, and we got your responses coming up here in a second. Oh, man. Where are you going? Are you feeling TK right now?
No.
No. I am not.
I don't know. But again, to stress the importance of this match, I kind of went a little bit further into kind of details of what's happened historically in Season 1 and Season 2. Now, both Epsilon NA and also TK are 0-2. Now, if they both lose again, they're going to be 0-3, Chris. Now, you may be sat at home thinking, 7-3, it's no big deal. Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. But it's a very, very big deal. Where previously we played 44 games where, you know, you could maybe get away with an 0-3 start. Now, you can't. We're only playing 22 games. Cut in half, essentially. You basically start 0-6. You have to kind of think of it like that. It's not good.
It's pretty huge. Well, we did ask the chat what is going to be the biggest match of the night. 57% of you guys agree with me. You think it's going to be Faze versus Elevate. The rest of the teams all got varied votes, but I think this Faze Elevate match, we're definitely going to be watching the top dogs of the night. This is an equally important match, though, in my opinion. We'll have to see what is going to happen with TK a little bit later. Ben, you talked about slow starts, and we've seen slow starts every season. Here are some of the notable poor starts in our Pro League history.
Now, these are just based off Week 1 records, okay? And bear in mind, of course, you're playing 44 games. Now, Rise in Season 1 started off 0-6. Final record 20-24. Final placement 8th place. They did qualify, but double first rounded when they actually got to the event. Optic Nation, a 1-5 start, finished 12-32. Guess where they placed? Stone dead last. TK, a 1-5 start from them. They just seem to be notorious for starting slow. Finished 21-23, 6th place, but did finish 3rd place at playoffs. This is kind of the one team which goes away from what you would expect. It's the anomaly, really, when you look at it that way. AR as well, 2-4 start in the first week, 19-25, finished 10th place, don't make it to playoffs. Season 2, Envy start 1-5. They then go 22-22, get in towards the X Games, finished 7th place overall in the season, but guess what? Get to playoffs, double first rounded. Prof, 2-4, a 16-28 final record, 10th place. TCM, 2-4, 23-21, 5th place. Great, your X Games, guess what? They go there, they get double first rounded. So there's a pattern essentially emerging, except for one, which is TK with 1-5. So you have to, again, remember the importance that there's only 22 games. So an 0-3 start from both Epsilon and TK, inflated as 0-6 from past leagues, which it's just not good enough. Today is so important for them.
Yeah, I was looking at teams that finished with a winning record. It was really just TCM. They were the only team that was able to come back and have a winning record when it came to match count. So this is a massive first week. Some big games tonight. All eyes right now, I think, are on Orbit and Epsilon. Who is going to secure the bottom spot of the leaderboard? That's the battle that's happening there. TK and Isolation. Isolation kind of sitting at 1-1. Will they be able to go back up into a 2-1 situation, or is it TK who is going to get their first win? or will they drop and secure the spot at the very bottom? Lots going to happen here, guys, and we got our predictions. They're just around the corner, so don't go anywhere. When we return, we'll be discussing not only Ben and my predictions, but we got Maven and Matt weighing in. We'll be right back.